Thank you for listening to Buffalo What's Next on WBFO. Buffalo What's Next is on summer break and will return with new content shortly. As we take this break, please continue to tune in to WBFO Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. for producers' picks of some of our favorite episodes of Buffalo What's Next.
How can we afford not to talk about race?
About education, about segregation, about humanity.
Since the dawn of this nation, racial violence has existed.
The way we have designed our society has a big hand in what occurred in that Tops Market.
The suburban area, everywhere. We must work and teach our children.
We need to make sure that we put more funding in our programs that help prevent gun violence and more money into art.
If we're going to have some real healing, we've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
On today's episode of Buffalo What's Next, Summertime Producer Picks, we look back at 3 segments from 3 previous episodes. Brigid Jaipaul Valenza speaks with Drea D'Nur about her work in the community before and since the May 14th tragedy from June 14th of last year. Then, Jay Moran chats with Shantelle Patton, founder of That Brown Bag Minority Business Directory, on some of her banking and financial education programs from September 22nd of last year. And we end the show with Tomlinson and White speaker with Dorian Withrow Jr. from November 1st, where he shares his perspective on what work needs to be done with our youth. First, Brigid Jaipaul Valenza with Drea D'Nur from June 14th of last year.
I'm joined today by Drea D'Nur.
Hi, Brigid.
Hi. How are you?
Man, that question used to be so easy to answer.
I know.
Oh, I'm good.
But not anymore. I mean,
No,
not anymore.
I'm not okay.
It's okay to not be okay. I think that there are people out there who need to be strong, but I think we also, for our own mental health, for our own spiritual well-being, have to take those moments, take that time to sit with ourselves, to not make it better, but at least settle into our souls to understand that, yeah, I'm not okay, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
I agree.
Your resume reads Mother, Buffalo native music and visual artist, archival researcher, evidence collector, community organizer, and activist. That's a whole lot of words. That's a whole lot of words. What, tell me about some of that.
Being a mother of 5 children, my oldest is 20. She's ending her 2nd year at Oberlin University. And then I have a 7-year-old and everybody in between, 7, 11.
So not busy.
13, 15, and 20.
Oh, wow.
It's important to know that because I think that when you see a Black woman in the world showing up for everybody but herself, but everybody who's connected to herself, you know, it should be acknowledged and honored that she's bringing all of that with her every time. And it's really just you learn to just this balancing act. You know, you're always working on that.
Yeah.
So for me, being a mother gives meaning to everything else that I do. So being an activist, I didn't even like to embrace that word until very recently, but in the tradition of people who have died in honor of holding that title, I accept that mantle. And I'm willing to do what must be done to help us be seen, and help us to move forward.
Visual and music. Where does that come from? How do the things around you influence that portion of what you do?
Well, I don't see myself. Well, first, let me just say, for those who don't know, I'm a singer. And I play the piano, I write music, I produce music, and I'm very visual. So if you come to a show which I call offerings, not concerts, then you're going to be stimulated in every way,
Fully sense
Yes.
all your senses.
And what you're seeing and experiencing comes from a vision that I had. So when I say visual artist, I don't necessarily paint, but I see visions. And I feel like as an artist, it's my job to bring that forward. So I hold what you feel. And my job is to hold it so deeply that I can put a sound to it. And when you hear that sound, I think the sound is healing because it's something that resonates with you and within you and stays with you. And then you're like, okay, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Now I can go and press play and hear that song, That's what I do with my music. So I do have a lot. I have a sound to make, and I'll be making very soon, that I've been holding on to because I've been absorbing and observing a lot.
How is the community? So as a visual artist or an artist that sees visions per se, and as an audio artist, someone who, what are the colors of the neighborhood? What are the sounds? What are the notes of the neighborhood right now?
I think everything is red right now. Everything is red. Red for me represents fire. For me, red, depending on the shade, can also represent blood. I think there's a lot of blood that's still in the pavements. You can't wipe that up.
Or wash it away.
And you can't wash it away. And I think the soil now holds blood that people are eager to wash away. And that is enraging.
It's not something that can be or should be erased or just moved aside for the sake of comfortability, progress. I mean, there needs to be a remembrance of the events, and that does need to percolate. It needs to stay with us to inform our action.
I've been working on a project for 2 years since the murder of George Floyd, an attempt to heal myself and to maybe offer healing to other people. I've been working on a project called Reimagine Black Death, expanding the testimony through remembrance. So it's interesting that you use that word, remembrance. But I think we need to reimagine as a collective of human beings what Black Death means, has meant, means right now, and should mean. And Black Death should not be lessened in any way. When you hear, I know people who mourn dogs, mourn the death of dogs and cats and other animals more than they mourn the loss of Black life. And I want to say that because it needs to be reimagined. A life was violently taken. 10 lives were violently taken. 3 were attempted to be taken, and maybe even more. And so what does that mean? Why is it so easy for people to just wash that away and move on? Why do we need to move on? Why can't we sit in that and mourn and evaluate what that means and just feel it? I'm concerned that people are not feeling anymore. That feels so subhuman to not feel.
Do you think that not feeling comes because, especially or specifically then, in that community, because of all of the trauma that is faced on a daily basis, that, you become numb to it? And I don't know that it's an aversion, but it's just, this is my life. This is how it is. So I have to deal with it, or else I will just lay down and stop.
Yeah, I think numbness is very real and should be named, especially in the Black community. You know, we've been taught to be numb. And there's this idea of survival that you're trying to navigate. You know, I do understand that, but I think talking about those who are not in the community and are not directly impacted by what happened, or who they think they're not directly impacted by what happened, you know, that's a different level of numbness to look at it and see it and read about it, and then within 30 days you've already moved on. That's something else. I don't think that's just being numb. I think that's something else.
Willfully blind, maybe, or ignorance.
Selective amnesia, like my grandfather loves to say.
Selective amnesia. You're listening to Buffalo What's Next. We're here with Drea D'Nur, a very busy D'Nur, a very busy woman, who's been working in the trenches with our East Side neighbors. One of the things that you have done is Feed Buffalo, Western New York's first organic halal food resource. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Feed Buffalo, I created that just out of a need. You know, I was trying to feed my own family. My children's father is Muslim. My family is a Muslim family, and I needed to go to pantries myself several times. Had a full-time job, but still struggled to feed my family, which I told you guys I have 5 children. So, and then wanting to give them healthy food,
right.
Wanting to prioritize the healthy options and lifestyle. I didn't see that, and you know, in the pantries that I went to, and I would go to my grandmother's house a lot of times around dinner time because I knew she would offer me something, and then she has a pantry right outside of her kitchen, and she would just give me a bag and say, take whatever you want, and never brought it up, never made me feel bad about it. And I said, one day I want to open a place that gives me the same feeling that I get when I go to my grandmother's house, but offers only the best option. I don't want people to feel like they have to leave and go look for something good, but they can get all the things that you would get if you had your ideal budget there for free because you deserve it. So that's what Feed Buffalo is. It's about dignity. It's about honoring choice. It's about thoughtfulness and considering those who have other lifestyles. They need halal food. They need gluten-free because of medical reasons. You know, we have all of that at Feed Buffalo.
There are major health disparities between the Black community and the white community.
Absolutely.
How does food and food apartheid make that problem even worse?
So when you think about a lot of the conditions, the health conditions within our communities, a lot of them are caused or sustained by food and can also be cured by food.
Mm-hmm.
So I think access is so important because it's like, well, why would you not, like, why is there not a place like Whole Foods in the east side of Buffalo? Why not?
Right.
Why are all the farmers market on other parts of Buffalo, but there's no healthy farmers market directly in the east side of Buffalo? I hear discussions of some coming perhaps, but why not? You know, and I've often asked myself, like, well, who profits from that? Who profits from poverty? Who profits from illnesses? What community, what group of people profits from that? These are questions you have to ask yourself, you know? So when you limit that access and you only put maybe one grocery store that arguably was subpar in a Black community, you know, and fill it with other types of organizations, food organizations, if you want to call it that serve things that I don't consider to be food, that are genetically modified, you have to ask yourself, why are we putting funding here and not here if you're actually concerned about people? So Yeah, when I think of Feed Buffalo and like why we exist, it's because I think COVID gave us a preview of what's going to come. Grocery stores were closed, and shelves are very, very bare these days still. Right. You know, so what are we going to do? How are we going to survive that? How are we going to move forward? And we're seeing a glimpse of that in response to what happened on 5/14. You see people coming into the community, and now magically everybody has food. Everybody wants to give now, right? But that's already gone. That lasts just a couple of weeks, but it can happen. And I think the only way we're going to survive and move forward is for us to be producing our own foods and sharing resources with one another. So basically, essentially remembering and returning back to indigenous practices, for me, is the only way we can move forward.
Do you think that that's something that will be embraced in the community? I mean, ultimately, we all do love convenience to a certain extent. We love to just go to the market, get our groceries and go. Arguably, some people would say this is more difficult. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that 5/14, the events, the tragic murders that happened, forced us to be in a position, in a space that we don't necessarily prefer to be in, right? Mm-hmm. But in that space, there's this weird moment of discovery too. You discover, wow, there are resources. Wow, we actually can share. Wow, we actually could work together. Imagine or reimagine us doing that all the time. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, a grocery store might feel convenient. It's only convenient until they don't have what you want. It's only convenient until you get sick because of something that you ate. It's only convenient until you can't afford it. It's only convenient until you can't make it to the grocery store. You know what I mean? When I grew up, we used to, Miss Richardson used to live next door to my grandmother, and we would go to her house and we can get some sugar or some rice or just something until we made it to the grocery store. Now we don't even know our neighbors. You know what I mean? We don't talk to our neighbors anymore, at least not in my communities, because a lot of people, like I live in a community where I have different neighbors every 6 months, and people don't even talk to each other enough to say, did you eat today?
Right. That's probably a bit less sign of the times, or a bit more sign of the times, in terms of our convenience, sort of a very, very much not looking out for our neighbor, and self-preservation. What part do you feel racism plays in that?
I want to say that I believe that racism is rooted in fear. People like to promote words like hate, but for me, the opposite of love is fear. It's fear. Racism is rooted in fear. What are you afraid of? Why? If you peel all the layers, what are you afraid of? And Toni Morrison said, "Who are you without your race, your idea, your construct of race? Who are you?" And I think it's important for those who are racist, and for all of these, and for those who sustain these systems, these racist systems, they have to ask themselves that question, about questions about racism. To me, I'm not interested in those discussions so much because I think some of the discussions sustain the constructs. I think all of the constructs should be destroyed. And I think we need to I know it's kind of radical, but I do think we should reevaluate what love means, what humanity means, and to allow ourselves to be totally and completely driven by that instead of the opposite of that, which I think is fear.
Do you feel that conversations are the way to move us forward? How do we move forward?
I personally believe that we've had lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of conversations. I think what we need is action. I think we need changed action. Some people say talk is cheap. I think conversations can be meaningful if the people who are having the conversation are open and respect what other people are bringing to the table. But I think, and I also think conversations can shed light on the position of the heart. And I think the position of the heart will kind of motivate what actions or inactions we take.
So what does that action look like to you?
To me,
Yeah.
wow. To me, it looks like sharing resources. To me, it looks like being honest with self. To me, it looks like doing the work. I do think non-Black people need to do the work of tearing down these racist systems that are sustained in our communities. They have to do that work. You know what I mean? And then continue to support beyond tragic moments. I think, and when you come into Black communities, don't come with a position of or a mindset of I'm the savior. I'm here to save you and make everything better. Come understanding that you might be in this position one day. You might need help. Maybe you needed help. Maybe your mother needed help. Maybe your children or your grandchildren will need help one day. And you will want someone to share those resources and to honor them just for their humanity and no other reason.
That was Brigid Jaipaul Valenza with Drea D'Nur. Next, Jay Moran with that Brown Bag Minority Business Directory founder, Shantelle Patton, from September 22nd.
That Brown Bag, this is a directory. It has Black-owned businesses in here, okay? So how does it work? So you go around to try to find these people. Do they find you? How does that work?
It's a combination.
Okay.
So first few years was boots to the ground, and I'm still very boots to the ground. But it was going from networking event to networking event, collecting business cards. It was going from door to businesses. I'm sitting in a business. I look around and I go, is that the owner? The owner looks like me. Can I talk to the owner? And establishing these relationships. This isn't just a white pages. It's not just a phone book that you find on your porch on a random September morning. This is a book of people's dreams. This is a book of people's wishes. And I feel like I've been slated with the task to make sure that those don't die. If I can have any capacity if I can help in any capacity a business celebrate 2, 3, 4, 5 years in business, 10 years in business because I've sent them customers, then my job has been a great success.
I love that there's people's dreams in here. Can you take me through maybe one that stands out to you? Yours on its own is probably one that we could talk about, but as you're reflecting on it, and I know there's a lot in here, and that's a question that's kind of maybe coming out of left field a little bit, but can you maybe talk about one of those that just, this is a dream, and boy, I'm happy to see where this is going.
So I'll pluck one of my favorites out of the 500 dreams, 500 plus dreams in here. And I'm going to talk about my sis over at Black Monarchy, Felicia Natalie Dove. So she's got a shop on West Utica, and it's always been fashion. When I met Felicia before she even had the store, it was about fashion and our representation in the fashion, our fabrics, our colors, our head wraps. It's always been about that. And seeing her growth over the years. Felicia just celebrated 5 years. That's a milestone for a small business to hit 5 years, generating revenue, and to have the exponential growth that she has. Felicia just recently was slated to do the costumes for Shea 710 Theater for Once on This Island. That's a dream that has not been deferred and that has been allowed to grow because of the support of the community around her. Because not from an arrogance standpoint, but I like to be able to say that I had something to do with that for her. She went to New York Fashion Week and thought she had to close the doors to her business while she was there. And I said, well, why? You have this point of sale system. You trust me. You have Wi-Fi. I can work my 9 to 5 from your store. Do not close your doors so that you can go chase your dream. And that's what I'm trying to really push forward with my, I don't even want to call it an agenda, my mission.
Sure, absolutely. Hey, interesting to hear you talk about support. Let's talk about that a little bit. I would think the Black community supports Black businesses. Are they connecting enough, Black businesses, connecting enough, though, with the general greater population of Western New York? I mean, there's a lot of people out there looking to spend money, looking for interesting things to do and to purchase, but is there a separation?
A little bit. As a people, we're more critical of ourselves than we would be on a Walmart or a McDonald's. So if a Black business makes an error, it's definitely going to be amplified more than if Walmart makes an error within our community. We'll run to Facebook. We'll run to Instagram. We'll run to Twitter. We will blast this business versus going to talk to the owner. We can't talk to the owner of Walmart, but we can talk to the owner of, say, for example, Sugar D's. We can talk to the owner of Golden Cup Coffee. I can't go talk to the owner of McDonald's. So I'm trying to shift that conversation that says we need to hold space for and hold grace for ourselves. Because most of the time, when a minority opens a business, it's simply that. It's opening a business and it's putting their dreams on the line. We may or may not have all the nuances in check when we open. So tell us when we're doing something wrong. Tell us, not everyone else. So I'm trying to bridge that gap that says we need to have more grace and compassion for ourselves than we do for anyone else.
Shantelle Patton is with us this morning on Buffalo What's Next. She is the founder of That Brown Bag. The directory is sitting right in front of us, over 500, as she called them, dreams, people's businesses that are trying to make it here in the Western New York economy. How about that? How about the economy? What are you seeing? Are you seeing, like you said, small business? It's always dicey there those first few years, right? But are you seeing a general upswing for these people?
Yes. So I watch the trends.
Yeah.
And statistically, since the Black Lives Matter movement was first put into place, we've seen a 16% increase in support across the nation to minority BIPOC businesses. So
16%?
Roughly.
Okay.
Like 15.7.
Sure. Well, we'll give you that.
But we're definitely seeing an increase, and I don't want it to just be a trend. As a people, we're trending right now, and I want that to continue beyond that wave. But there absolutely has been an increase. Even thanks to now, T-Mobile has, Minority Business Enterprise Day. We've got Black Business Month. The city just recently, in August, did Buy Black Buffalo, and that was, to highlight a good chunk of the businesses in the area and to send an influx of consumerism into those businesses. So there's definitely been an uptrend. I want that to continue.
Of course. How about that then? Make your pitch for the businesses inside That Brown Bag. What's going to make them special? What's going to make it worthwhile for that trend to continue? Like you said, check these businesses out. What am I going to get that's special that, like you said, I might get it? I can go to Walmart. We know we're going to get at Walmart, for better or worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going to a small business for whatever we need. What about that from what we see inside That Brown Bag?
It's recirculation in the community of that dollar. So when you spend your money at Walmart, the minute you spend your money at Walmart, it is no longer here. Mm-hmm. When you spend your money with a Golden Cup, with an Empty Cup, with a Black Monarchy, with the Cybos African Imports, those funds remain in this community and they're reinvested. We're talking about people who live where they work. So they're going to turn around and they're going to spend the money where they live. That is an increase in, again, commerce for the neighborhood, for the communities. It's an increase in revenue that stays in the communities. We talk about cities and townships that will drop your speeding ticket to a parking ticket so the funds stay in the township.
Right.
Let's almost use that same ideology.
Okay.
Keep it here with us. When you're spending with a local business, you're giving an entrepreneur the opportunity possibly to send their child to private school, possibly to send their child to college. You got a board at Target. You got an executive board,
right,
who probably doesn't need any assistance in sending their kids to college.
Safe bet, right?
So what we're talking about is, that personal touch coming from a small business. Walmart, they got self-checkout. You're talking to the person that owns the business 9 times out of 10 when you walk into a small business. I think it's just that personal touch. And especially for 2 years of not being able to touch, let's get back to it.
Let's talk to our audience in regard to how can they find out what's inside that brown bag? How can they find these businesses? How can they find that restaurant? How can they find that fashion shop that they're looking for that they didn't, maybe didn't know existed?
So I've made it easy.
Okay.
First, the directory itself is available in paperback, hardcover, or Kindle download.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon. So you can prime it. You can get it and you can have your list. You can have your 500 dreams in 2 days.
All right.
I also have a website, which is brownbagcertified.com.
Brownbagcertified.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And that kind of leads me into another arm that came out of
right
this.
ahead. Yeah, please.
And that would be the Brown Bag Business Association.
All right.
So I've got a membership association. We're going to think BBB, but a Black-owned business.
Okay.
So these businesses, I send them information on grants, on webinars, on seminars. I have networking events to put them in rooms with possible individuals who could give them contracts or who can expand their business breadth. And so the website denotes those businesses that are brown bag certified, and they have indicated that they're going to provide service at proper levels, because that's one of my big sticklers is if you're going to do business, do good business.
Sure.
There's a map on my website. Tap pins and it'll pop up. This business is here. This business is there. So the brick and mortars, there's a map. If there is something happening, it's on the website as well. And then everything for social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are all that brown bag. I wake up every morning. I do my due diligence, my normal daily personal maintenance, and then I open up Instagram and I hit share. And I hit share on any and every Black-owned business that I know that is doing good business, and I share their posts to my network.
That was Jay Moran with Shantelle Patton from September of last year. And we end the show with Thomas O'Neill White with Dorian Withrow Jr. from November 1st.
Dorian, thank you for being with us today.
I appreciate you for having me.
You've written a self-help book called Thoughts of Creatively King, 114 Realities. It's not just your regular self-help book. What's the reason behind the title?
Thoughts of Creativity King, 114 Realities. It's my little masterpiece. It's composed of poetry, like free verse, haiku, Japanese poems, short stories, and illustrations of some of those free verse. It's made up of my life, philosophy, and I wanted to put lessons into it to help people and let them know that they're not alone.
What inspired you to want to write a book to help inspire others?
I got the idea from a mentor. I met with him slightly before college. It was a good meeting. I was passing some ideas back and forth on what I wanted to do, and we ultimately came. He gave me 3 topics to kind of focus on, and he told me, what are your likes, your passions, and your purpose? And I didn't have a good answer for him. Long story short, I left, and I got the idea. It clicked to me. I could write a book. And before I met with him in my last 2 years of high school, I've been writing poetry. People loved it, and I gravitated towards it. I did more on my own, and by the time that idea came, I had a set of poems already laid out ahead of me, and I just added to it.
And this was your mentor in high school?
He was a mentor outside of school. I met him when I was in the Jack and Jill program, Jack and Jill of America. I met his name is Najee. He's owner of Phoenix Innovation, and he's a great guy. I released the book, and I talked to him and I praised him, and I was so grateful for their help and for him talking to me and giving me the idea. helping me produce the ideas I needed to make the book happen.
And you include several short stories from your life in the book. Can you give me an example of one of these short stories?
Yeah. So I talked about the time I went to my great grandmother's house. I came to rake some leaves, and I was like, I can do it on my own. And I didn't want her to help, so I'm just out there raking. I got some classwork to do, and I had a couple other things to do that day. But I wanted to take time out to help her. So I'm raking, and she takes a step outside the door, and she yells, "You want any help? You're gonna be here all day." I was like, "No, I got it." I was like, "This woman's almost 90." I'm like, "Why? No." So
how old were you?
I was 21 at the time, I think. So I'm raking, and then she comes back out, and I'm like, "Hey," she said, "No, let me help you, because you're gonna be out here all day. You got other stuff to do." And I'm like, "All right, I got it." And then as I'm raking and we're getting up the leaves, I was tearing up a bit, because I'm like, well, I'm here to help her, and I feel like she shouldn't have to do this. My little pride,
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I got this. I can do it on my own. I don't need help from my great grandmother. And so we put the bags in, and we set them off to the side. We had them in a row. I had set off the first 3 bags, and as I'm looking at those first 3 bags, I see that those first 3 bags, they were smaller, and it took me a lot more time to put those 3 bags in that row. And with her help, I saw that the bags were bigger, and the job it got done a lot faster. So there's a few lessons in that. So put your pride to the side.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes. And the results are much greater and a lot faster. So that's the beauty of the short stories.
That's wonderful. You also said you've got, assorted poetry, haikus in your book. What got you into that?
Free verse poetry, high school. So I did that junior, senior year, even my sophomore year.
At Amherst High School?
Yeah.
With Gordon Kroc?
No, I had Miss Godino.
Well, shout out to both of them. Tiger Pride.
Yeah, I met with Miss Godino yesterday.
Oh, excellent.
I wanted to talk to them about the book and get some things going with it. So haikus came up. I was playing a game, or I was watching gameplay of a game called Sekiro, or it was like the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And there was haikus presented in the game, and I was put to awe by it, because I never heard of these this type of poetry, and I was like, I did a little bit of research on what its structure is and some examples, and I was like, well, I could do this. So I did some on my own. And I was like, I'll slide this over to the book. And that's kind of how the short stories came to be. And discovery, and the book kind of developed over time. So we were at a Fatherhoods conference through Breaking Barriers. And we were panelists because they wanted to showcase the people who did the podcast. And we talked about examples of which fatherhood would have helped. And that's how I talked about that short story, and I was like, people liked it. So why don't I write these down and add this also into the work I have?
What's the process like in writing a book? Lots of editing and rewrites. How long did it take you from when you said, I'm going to write a book, to it actually being published?
My goal to publish a book was by the end of college, slightly before or slightly after. And I got the idea to write a book the summer before freshman year started. It would have been June. And I published it not like a full circle kind of thing, but June of 2022. So by 2018, summer 2022, it took about 4 years. And the process, it was a lengthy one, a lot of learning, but I had a great mentor. So I published a book before this one. I had a book published before this one. It was Speak, Young Brown People Speak, We Are Listening. It is a book composed of a compilation of work from people all over the country, young people like myself. And they had their input, like illustrations, short stories, poems, essays. And it's great. And the woman that published it was Alberta Lampkins. I met with her, and we discussed the book virtually, talked about some things, and I was like, this opportunity is amazing because she can help me.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to her. I discussed, like, I wanted to produce a book. I didn't know how to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything. I just knew I was typing, and then, like, I had this goal, right? And I feel like that's for a lot of people. Long story short, she helps me, published in June, and now I have a consulting company surrounded around helping people become authors by giving them that information that they needed to produce a book.
And that was actually going to be my next question. What words of wisdom can you impart on prospective authors about writing a book?
Network, be persistent in your craft, and seek help. Find that connection.
And just for our listeners, where can folks find your books?
So the one I co-authored, Speak, Young Brown People Speak, We Are Listening. You can just search that. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Target, Walmart. My book, Thoughts of Creativity, King 114 Realities. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. I'm working on expanding that. But it's also available on my website, dswjr.com, and I can get that to you personally.
We'll continue our conversation here on Buffalo What's Next after this short break.
Hey, is this thing on?
Test, 1, 2.
Sounds great. Let's go.
The podcast world is overflowing with more than 750,000 podcasts to choose from.
But for great local podcasts, you can now go to one place, the new Amplify BTPM Pods app. Here you can discover content produced in Western New York and Southern Ontario, our own backyard.
With a wide variety of genres to choose from, there is something for everyone.
Listen to the best independently produced podcasts in the region, anywhere, anytime.
Download the free Amplify BTPM Pods app wherever you get your apps and begin exploring your local podcast community now.
This is Buffalo What's Next, where we have conversations with the community about moving forward. To have your voice heard, press the Talk to Us button on the WBFO app, and we'll work to get your questions and comments on the air. Join us on Twitter @WBFO or email us at news@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
You're listening to Buffalo What's Next. Thomas O'Neill White here with author Dorian Withrow Jr. Dorian, you are actively involved with the Breaking Barriers program, mentoring boys and young men of color. We've had a few other mentors on, including Malik Stubbs last week. How did you get involved with that program?
My mother brought it to my attention, and she had me apply, and I sort of went along with that. And it's been very fruitful. So, pretty good.
Shout out to Tommy McClam and Daniel Robertson. This is your third warning. Come on the show, please.
Yeah, they're awesome. So mentoring for me in the program, it's by leading by example, the things I do, and also giving them words of wisdom as needed, corrections as needed, and they're acting as I wouldn't say a guide, but a sort of path that can be taken.
Talk to me about this trip to Baltimore. I mean, Malik touched on it last week. Can you get a little bit more in depth with that?
Yeah, so we went to Baltimore Tuesday to Saturday. We went to a Cities United conference, and it was great. I loved the energy that all the young guys and young ladies had. They had a lot to offer. They're doing amazing things, and I'm so proud of them. I'm proud of the connections I've made, and I want to use those. And they and I made some big connections, so I want to use them for the podcast we're doing for Breaking Barriers. It's another aspect of it. We did we did a lot of sightseeing. It's a beautiful city, and there's a lot to do there. I wish I'd gotten more to go out. There was a Comic-Con. I think there was like a concert one night we went, and yeah, plenty of places to eat, activities to go to. It's a very nice mall outside of Baltimore. I think it was like started with an H. It was like I forget.
And what about this? This, I don't know if it's a chance meeting, but you came into contact with Los Angeles Clippers owner and former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer.
Well, I didn't come into contact with him, but I got the chance to hear from him on stage regarding activism and social justice in his lane and what he's doing with that. And I actually didn't know that was him. Somebody brought it to my attention after. But it's good to see that these people that are doing very well in society are, coming to a place where they will and are active in seeking to help, people that are struggling in the social justice issues get involved in activism.
From your point of view, you work so much through Breaking Barriers and Boys, Young Men, and Young Men of Color. What do these young men need, and has that changed at all post 514?
I don't think it changed much. They need guidance and more positive role models to observe. Now, when we talk about what young men need, it's a strong mental shift from what their harsh environments impose on them. We need to make that mental shift into what the environments that are conducive to progress, and the environments that are healthier, and I think that is the key. Like the thing that locks the door is that mental shift for them to become their best selves and help others.
Changing the narrative, which is something they talk about all the time.
Strongly, yeah.
You were featured in NBC News and USA Today. Can you talk a little bit about both of those things?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on the video and articles to come out about that, but it was a great experience, and shot some videos. You're gonna love it. NBC, we had a surprise session, and New York and USA Today, we had it's gonna be a lot of people on it, and it's gonna be great videos and great input from us regarding Buffalo and other youth talking about their cities.
With the USA Today story, what did they have you do?
We discussed about 514 and what can be done to help improve the aftermath, improve the way we look at food deserts, improve the way we look at the troubles in our city. And it was a beautiful time, and I think that great things will come from it.
Were there specific ideas that came from that conversation about what to do, anything concrete?
I would say my input from it was attacking the food deserts where the food supply is, getting the farmers more active and more inclusive into the schools and the inner cities, and also speaking on the image of a rough area. Like, it's not all bad, but I'm not giving all the bells and whistles either. So speaking on the narrative and speaking on some things that can be changed about our food supply within, the disparities in the neighborhoods.
Have you shopped at that Tops?
Not at that one in particular, but for the podcast I do, I'm in that area, and for the Breaking Barriers, we're in that area, so we do a lot of work there, and the community was very powerful because I saw a lot of people come together, and a lot of people put in a lot of work to help each other, and that kind of thing. We need that all the time, not just when tragedy happens, but as a community, I saw the interconnectedness and the unity between people and in other areas outside of food. I feel like in schools and, safety concerning the city, that has to be much stronger and just like that greater.
Mm-hmm. Did you grow up in a social justice minded household?
Yeah, I attribute that to my mother. So it was a lot of learning about my history and about how the world, like that global awareness, she instilled that. And through the variety of programs she put me in, one being Jack and Jill America and Breaking Barriers, I had the opportunity to develop a mind for what can be changed, how to approach it, and maybe some necessary steps to take so that we can reach the goals that we need to, so that society is a safer and happier place.
You are listening to Buffalo What's Next. Thomas O'Neill White here with author Dorian Withrow Jr. You also minored in philosophy in college. Do you apply that within Breaking Barriers? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, I apply it all the time. So with my philosophy minor, I've had the honor of being bestowed Phi Sigma Chi, which is Philosophical Honor Society, and the St. Thomas Aquinas Award for Philosophical Excellence or Exceptional Achievement Interest in Philosophy. And I've had the pleasure of learning by great people, but I apply it to Breaking Barriers through my words of wisdom that I give to the young guys, and I put it through my my book as well. I reshape the lessons I get in class and from the literature I read and the work I write, and I apply it to myself, put it through my own eyes, and give it in a message that I feel would retain through others better, and people would receive much clearer, because not a lot of people will.
Yeah, you can't just quote Socrates or Marcus Aurelius. And you are also a first degree martial arts black belt. That's got to take a lot of discipline. Again, just with philosophy, do you apply that? Do you apply what you learn through the martial arts towards everyday life?
Yeah, I'm talking about this in my next book, actually. So what martial arts teaches me, I'll speak for myself. Mistakes will be made. They'll always be made. And we can do nothing but constantly improve them every day and make sure that we refine what we're working on. There's always a goal that we're constantly trying to reach. And I apply that throughout my life. We all make mistakes. We trip up. But it's part of the process. And no matter how high you get, there will always be mistakes. No matter how old you get, there will always be mistakes. How much money you get, there will always be mistakes. So I apply that in my everyday, and I hope I can showcase that through my next piece of literature and through my example.
And how long have you been practicing martial arts?
3 years.
3 years.
A little over that. But yeah, 3 years.
And what discipline?
ITF Taekwondo. So there's two forms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's WTF, ITF. There's ITF and WTF. And WTF is like the stuff you see on the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
ITF is more of more punching involved and elbows and all that stuff.
And you mentioned you are working on a new book.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So it's the title is Wisdom 45 Advice. And it's another self-help book, less poetry based, but more essay based, with poetic elements involved. I'm working with an illustrator right now. I popped that over to her and pay her for the work, and she'll get more exposure for that. And with all my work, I love to promote people. I love to give people that opportunity to showcase their work and hopefully gain access to more opportunity. So like maybe if there's a local artist around who are interested in getting their illustrations put in my book, I could send them the manuscript, pay for it, and get you involved. But that book, it's gonna be even better than the last one. It's the information, the weight of the information, and how it relates to me. It tells my story, but also it makes it relatable to others in that way as well.
Do you have a planned release date for it? Or is it still...
I can't give you a hot date, but I'm thinking, I'm anticipating December, if not January. So it's on the tail end. It's always coming. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. We've got a few minutes left. I wanted to ask you one more question. It's very broad, but I try to ask all my guests this question. From your vantage point, what does Buffalo need?
Buffalo needs the people already in it to really get involved in the things that trouble us. So schooling is one particular issue. I think that parents, it's got to be a heavier involvement in the education of the children. If not them in particular, find somebody that'll be the
mentor.
Yes. Guide, person that'll assist them whenever needed. Find the resources you got to use, breaking barriers. Find the resources and guides and push for safety in our communities. Attend the town hall meetings. Attend, your social media posts. Tackle the council members. Get at the mayor.
Mm-hmm. We hear a lot of times that the resources are here. It's just a matter of getting them to the people who need them the most. How do we do that? Is that through social media? Is that through programs that maybe can be on TV, maybe radio? How does that work?
We have to raise voices. I'm with Dr. Cornell West on this one. So, it's raising your voice, being heard, that parrhesia, that, the frank speech, the unapologetic speech. But, discussing the issues, not glancing over it, not sugarcoating what's going on, and really combating the people that need to be talked to. Like, all right, we have the access to these people. Let's talk to them, really convince them, get evidence, and push for where certain dollars need to go and systems need to be implemented so we get to the place we ideally desire. So really working with that.
And that would do it for today's Summertime Producer Picks episode. We would like to thank our guests, Drea D'Nur, Shantelle Patton, and Dorian Withrow Jr. If you missed this and you'd like to hear it again, a reminder that this program is a podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts or the new Amplified BTPM app. And each episode is also online on demand at WBFO.org. This is WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station. This is Charles Gilbert. Thanks for listening.